I actually think the incoming Labour government is going to be a bit of a blessing, not so much for the country, but for the prospects of a radical patriotic party making progress. The worse it gets in this country, the more people are going to be forced to vote for something outside the box. So if you can still go on holiday, you've got a stable job and you can pay your mortgage and you can watch X Factor, and if you might moan about the boats coming over the channel and all the other problems, but generally your life is not impacted. What I think we're going to see over the next 10 years is people's personal lives disturbed to quite a significant degree. Politics is going to come home to roost for a lot of people, because as the ancient Greek philosopher said, you can ignore politics, but politics won't ignore you. People's individual lives are downstream from politics a lot of the time, but sometimes it takes a long time for problems to really manifest themselves in people's lives. Can you imagine Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner running this country? For me, my purpose, my driving mission for the last 25 years of my life has been to save the country. What I don't want is for there to be a slow, gradual decline where people adjust, people get used to it, people move away. Essentially, I want things to get so bad so quickly in the shortest possible amount of time that it forces people off their backsides and then outside of the Westminster duopoly. That's what we need. And I think at the moment we've got a perfect storm. We've got Nigel Farage and Reform taking a sledgehammer to the two-party system. Then you've got Labour coming in, a new Labour government, which is going to be worse than anything we've ever seen. You can't blame a dog for barking. Labour are Labour. They're going to accelerate immigration. They're going to unleash woke extremism. They're going to do nothing to stop the boats. In fact, a Labour government, news of a Labour government is going to spread throughout the third world, and I think it will increase the boat invasion. We're on the cusp of everything about to be getting worse and worse and worse, and we're also in the middle of a major realignment because Nigel Farage and Reform are taking a wrecking ball to the two-party system.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the World of Momos podcast. And on this episode of Reflections and Reactions, we have a very special guest with us. We have the leader of Britain First, Paul Golding, with us. And what we're going to talk about is basically what's happening in British politics, and also get to know a bit about Paul, his life story, and what does Britain First actually stands for. So hi there, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
So, just to start us off, could you tell us like a little bit about yourself and how you ended up creating Britain First as well, but also because it's in your book as well, the Battle of Britain for Britain. Sorry, so just tell us what's in that book as well and your life story, if you don't mind.
Well, I first got involved in politics back in 1999. I think I was age 16 or 17. I can't really remember which one. So I was very, very young. I'd just come out of secondary school, and I was just drawn towards the situation, what's happening in Britain. Primarily, at that point, mass immigration and left-wing politics and all these different issues. And I think, if I remember rightly, I remember watching a party political broadcast in the 1997 general election, and it was quite stirring. It was a right-wing kind of patriotic party political broadcast. It was very stirring, and that kind of triggered a kind of awakening in myself. And like I said, when I left school, I first went to a meeting of the old British National Party, and I started to get involved. I started to move through the ranks, became a full member, became a full activist, and it just kind of blossomed from there, really. I've been doing it ever since. When the old British National Party started to crumble in 2010 after the general election, myself and many others decided to leave that party and resign. Lots of issues were happening at that point that we were deeply unhappy about, and we decided to resign and distance ourselves from what was going on. And then in 2011, the situation was completely changing across the board. We saw the rise of the English Defence League under Tommy Robinson. the British National Party, which was strictly a political party, was starting to crumble and fade away. So we decided to plug that gap. Essentially, we launched a new political party. We sat down in Northern Ireland where we first launched it, myself and a bunch of others, exiles from the old British National Party, and we decided upon the name Britain First. We launched a party. The first 3 years were extremely difficult, very, very difficult. The whole movement.
Sorry, when did you say you started the party, the Britain First?
2011.
Okay.
Oh yeah, was 13 years ago. So it's flown by.
Wow. Yeah.
It's flown by at lightning speed. But yeah, it's really that long ago, 13 years ago. So it's quite incredible. I can still remember the first meeting we held, and we had an easel up, and we was doing combinations of names and so on, and logos, and drawing it all up on an easel and all that. I still remember that meeting. There was only 3 of us, and here we are, 13 years later, and it's quite interesting because last week Nigel Farage was boasting that Reform had burst through the 30,000 members mark, and I had a look at our membership. Our membership's up over 16,000 for the first time, paid up members, which is over half of what they had last week. So if you think about it, Reform is on TV every day. They're on GB News, BBC, ITV. They're given a massive platform. They're on radio. You name it. They're given a massive platform. Britain First is
Top
censored.
TV as well. I mean, like, ties have had like so much airtime for more than 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's almost every day they're on there. Yeah.
Every day incessant, and they got to 30,000 members last week, and we're up at 16,000 members. Despite all the censorship and all the persecution and all the lawfare that we have to deal with, so I see it as quite an achievement, and I'm very, very, very proud of that. So we are doing extremely well. Obviously, I've been to prison multiple times, all of them for political reasons, just like Tommy Robinson, just pure political stitch ups. And I've been in three different prisons. There's terrorists in Belmarsh serving life sentences as we speak for plotting to chop my head off. The peaceful ones, the peaceful Islamists that we see running around London every Saturday.
Religion of peace,
I think I've been arrested over 20 times, been prosecuted over 10 times, been in and out of 3 different prisons. I've been attacked in prison by a bearded jihadi gang, well-known extremists. So it's been a rough ride. We've suffered a lot of persecution, a lot of sabotage from the state, but we've persevered and we've thrived and we've survived, and here we are. And when I was released in 2019 from I think it was Liverpool prison, when I was released from there, I decided to sit down and write down and catalogue forensically all of the persecution that I'd suffered during my career. And the result of it was my first book, The Battle for Britain, which I'm going to update at some point shortly. Just waiting for a few things to fall into place first.
Yeah, I think so. People should go and read it. I'll put a link over here as well where people can find the book. I was going to jump into something else, but I need to ask first, like, with the BNP, right? Obviously, at that time, things were different when it started. So, I mean, it's important for people to know the reason why it attracted people who felt disenfranchised from the whole of the country. Which that feeling has actually just grown and grown and grown over the years, where it's gone to the whole of the society in different pockets that are feeling like that. But what attracted people, like what attracted you and other people along with you, and then what made you leave it? Like, what was the key points over there?
So I get this question a lot because obviously, I was in the
It's
British
controversial, sort of.
Yeah, it's controversial. Yeah, I was in the BNP for over 10 years. I was elected councillor for the BNP in Swanley, just outside of South East London. But you have to put things into context. Of course, context is everything. So if you put it into its correct context, I first got involved in 1999. So if you roll the tape back to then, there was nothing. There's nothing. If you was against
Yeah.
immigration, you're against, all the problems that we see are really coming to the forefront now. If you were against all those problems back then, there was no other options apart from the BNP. There
Mm.
wasn't Britain First. There wasn't reform. There wasn't. There were no options. It was a lack of options more than anything.
Mm.
So, I think even Tommy Robinson said he went to a BNP meeting at one point and stayed for a while. But again,
Yeah.
there was essentially a split right down the middle of the old BNP. There was traditional BNP, which is the image that most people have got, which is racist and old National
Mm.
Front type and so on. Now, when I first
Mm.
joined in 1999, the BNP was undergoing a dramatic shift in that Nick Griffin was coming to the fore, and he challenged the old leader,
Mm.
John Tyndall, for the leadership. Now, Nick Griffin's idea was that we would make
Mm.
the BNP far more sensible, far more responsible, far more moderate, and try and repeat the success that we're having on the continent, like the Le Pen family in France and so on. And I
Mm.
thought, yes, that's what we need to do. Not go backwards. We need to go forwards. We need to become far more mainstream and moderate. So I thought, yeah, there's no other options, and Nick Griffin wants to modernise the BNP and make it, a more acceptable and mainstream force. Yeah, I will jump on board, and
Mm.
I will help Nick Griffin to go down that specific route, which he did.
Mm.
He did it. He modernised it. He made it successful. We got over
Mm.
50 directly elected local councillors, a seat on the Greater London Assembly, 2 seats in European Parliament, and came very close to seats in
Mm.
the Westminster Parliament. So that was all. If that didn't exist, if that strategy wasn't there, that orientation wasn't there, then it's doubtful that I would have stayed for as long as I did. But it was a lack of options.
Mm.
There's a lot more options these days. There's a lot more different things you can join and take part with. But back then, it was
Mm.
one thing. It was just there was nothing else apart from
Yeah.
the Tory party,
Mm.
and then you went right to the BNP. So you had a choice. No one wants to join the Tory party. So the only thing that
And
was
even if there was a lot of things that you might not have agreed with, even like something that might be niggling at the back of your head, because there was no other option, you just
mm,
have to go along with few things, don't you? Like, well, at least they're getting the main points across, and like that's how
yeah.
you try justifying it till it becomes to
Mm.
that point where you just can't go along with it.
Well, it was getting better with time, you see, and we was making sure that it was
Mm.
getting better with time, and that we started to enforce discipline and started to set boundaries. Whereas in the BNP of the
Mm.
'90s was pretty much like the old National Front, but like I said, it was not there was
Mm.
nothing else really to work with. And again, it was heading in the right direction, and it had the right strategy,
Mm.
and it did work to a degree. Kind of, very successful. Seat on the Greater London Assembly, 2
Mm.
seats in European Parliament, county councillors, local
Mm.
councillors, all across the
Yeah.
country. So the process was working. Uh, what really there were two things that derailed the old BNP, and this is why we all left, and we
Mm.
had there was a big civil war, and we had a fallout and so on. But primarily, there was two things.
Mm.
The first was Nick Griffin's election to the European Parliament. Now,
Mm.
the European Parliament is a paper tiger. It's got no power. The legislation, the
Yeah.
laws come down from the European Commission, and they're only voted on by the
Mm.
European Parliament. They can add a few amendments, but it's very limited. They can either say yes or
Mm.
no, and if they say no, it goes back, and then
Mm.
they can't actually block any legislation. They can't make any legislation themselves. It all has to come down from the European Commission. So it's a kind of a paper tiger. It's a
Mm.
waste of time, so to speak. It's the world's largest talking shop.
Mm.
So Nick Griffin was elected to the
Mm.
European Parliament, and he just engrossed himself in that champagne and caviar lifestyle of the European Parliament. He would sit
Mm.
there all day preparing his 1 minute speeches, and he would go into the chamber. And I think that after decades of speaking in local pubs to working class audiences, I think it was kind of like a very very much a change of scenery for him. He liked being in a parliamentary chamber for the first time,
Yeah.
giving his little speeches and
Yeah.
so on. But you're allowed 1 minute to speak, then you got to sit down. Can't make any laws. You can only tinker around with,
Mm.
in a very small way, any laws that come down from the Commission, and they can bypass the European Parliament anyway. But he got so engrossed in that European Parliament lifestyle that he completely ignored the party back on home soil. He ignored what was happening here in Britain. He just wanted to be over there all the time.
Mm.
And another reason for that, in my opinion, was a little bit of greed, because it's like the House of Lords. If you're a member of the European
Yeah.
Parliament, you go into the Parliament, you sign on. Every time you sign on, you get like £300.
Mm.
So you think, you
Yeah.
want to, it incentivizes you to be there financially. So he was there all the time, getting his 300 quid a day, amassing a lot of money. And we could all see this, and we was
Mm.
like, you need to focus still on what's happening in Britain. You need to be touring the country. You need to be still going to
Mm.
meetings and doing all. Wasn't interested. In fact,
Mm.
even worse than that, he started to squeeze out and minimalise the people who were pulling him up on this. So
Mm.
eventually it got to another thing as well was Nick Griffin's appearance on Question Time. I don't know if you remember that or if you watched it
Mm.
before. But so he got an invite to Question Time because he became a parliamentarian for the first time. That's the rule. You have to be a parliamentarian or get a special invite. So
Mm.
he was invited on to Question Time. This was the greatest opportunity to reach the public that ever existed. There's even up to this day that there's never been anything that could surpass it, because 1 out of every 3 adults in the UK were watching that episode because it was built up so much. Nick
Mm.
Griffin was going to be taking part. So it was a
Yeah.
spectacular opportunity to go in there and be a tribune of the people, be a man of the people, and really just keep it basic. But I urged him to do simulations. We'd get an audience and panelists, and we'd be hostile and all this kind of other stuff. Wasn't interested.
Mm.
Spent the week previous or prior to Question Time in the European Parliament, drawing his £300 a day, doing his stupid
Mm.
1 minute speeches. And then when it came around, he actually took, instead of taking out the majority advice, he took the advice of our press officer at the time, which said, go in there, smile a lot, fit in, don't be combative, try to present a moderate image. And what happened then was he went in there and it was a bear
No
pit.
different than what it already was there.
Yeah, so he was under attack. He was getting
Yeah.
attacked. And his answer was to sit there looking all smug and smiling, and it just looked pathetic. Did no preparation, no simulation, nothing at all. So he completely blew it. So 1 out of every 3 adults in the
Mm.
UK was watching Nick Griffin making a fool of himself. And I think from there, you just see the BNP's fortunes fall off a cliff. There were some polls afterwards that
Yeah.
says that people sympathised with him. Yes, people sympathise with people who are under attack. But at the same time, he didn't come across as a leader, as a politician. He didn't come across as though he
Mm.
knew what he was talking about. So essentially, in a political sense, yes, people felt sorry for him because it was obvious he walked into a bear pit and an ambush. But he didn't come across as someone you could follow. And I think the BNP's fortunes just dived off a
Yeah.
cliff after that. So a mixture of appalling an appalling performance on Question Time destroyed the party's fortunes. But everyone
Mm.
just got really angry, and so many regional organisers and top officers like myself all started resigning because he was just in Brussels all the time. He wasn't interested. Literally, the
Mm.
BNP was just, he wasn't interested. He wasn't interested. All he cared about
Yeah.
was the European Parliament gravy train. So we all resigned, and the party fell apart very quickly.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, and recently I've seen as well, like with him sort of endorsing Galloway, it just shows you like he'd do anything for a bit of limelight, just like that guy. I mean, I see such people which you have an opportunity, but you being so selfish is close to being a traitor, because
Mm.
you are, you just, how can you side with the enemy? Look at what Galloway is doing. And I do consider Islamists of those sorts who actually are saying themselves, right? I don't have to say it. They're saying it themselves that they hate Britain and they
Yeah.
want to change our laws and they want to change the way of our life. Well, they are declaring themselves as enemy. And if you, as a politician, as someone who's born and bred over here, is siding with them, then it's close. It probably is being a traitor in my eyes.
Well, I just look at the situation. So I was called at one point Griffin's golden boy, and obviously I was, one of his
Mm,
proteges. I freely admit that I learned a lot from Nick Griffin. He was very sharp and
mm,
intelligent, a good operator back in the day. But these days, I look at
mm.
him cozying up to a lot of these Islamic extremists, these basically
Yeah,
jihadists, wannabe jihadists,
yeah.
real like ISIS types, and he's cozying up to them
Mm,
purely because him and his new little team around him, people like Jim Dawson and so on, they're cozying up, or they're trying to cozy up to the extreme right. They call themselves
mm.
ethno-nationalists. So
Yeah.
they're trying to do this live streamer type thing where ethno-nationalists come onto live
Mm.
stream from their mum's basement and all this kind of stuff, and then they give donations and stuff.
On
That's what
Twitter Spaces and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so they're trying to do that, and the way they're trying to make
Mm,
progress on that front is to be as anti-Israel as possible. And one way to prove your anti-Israel
mhm.
credentials
It's just right.
is
Yeah.
to suck up to all of these, the biggest Islamist YouTubers and so. So he's doing
Yeah.
podcasts and all this kind of stuff with Dilly Hussein and all these other people who are total ISIS types. But I just look back, you look back at sometimes at someone that you used to respect, someone that you used to idolize back in the day,
Mm,
uh, and you just think, my, how the mighty have fallen. And they have.
yeah.
It's really sad to
Do
see.
you sort of like do you feel angry? Sad, like you said, sad, or do you
Mm.
also feel a little bit angry towards yourself for not seeing that side of that person, that like, or it's just that it didn't appear to be, or just the time that it happens.
No, because if you go back to the period between, say, the year 2000 to 2010, Nick Griffin was like the
Hmm.
Nigel Farage of politics. You know, he was the man.
Hmm.
He was the
Hmm.
one who had the following, the party in place. He was the one who was saying everything about grooming gangs, about mass immigration, about left wing politics. He was the one. He was the man.
Yeah.
So it's sad in a way. It's really sad how someone can go from up here all
Yeah.
the way down here so spectacularly. Um, but long term, I mean,
Yeah.
everything happened for a reason. It needed to happen.
Hmm.
Nick Griffin needed to go.
Yeah.
Too much baggage, too much stuff from the old
Hmm.
days that he'd accumulated over the decades. He needed to go in order for
Hmm.
new formations to take the place and take the reins.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you because obviously a lot of people associate Britain first with ethno-nationalism, and I keep telling them, like, you have no idea what you're talking about, because
Yeah,
they are not about nationalism. We do have a danger of a minute danger, I would say, which is propelled by people like Nick Griffin and other people who are in the shadows,
yeah,
because they're using people's frustrations to misguide them, because they just want power for themselves, obviously, because that will get them elected. Like, you get people riled up and stuff. They don't care if we burn in the process, the whole society burns in the process, from their hatred. But do you see, like, there is a problem coming up like this, where people are then we can't have sensible conversations, right? Because if we can't talk about immigration and stuff, because it will get hijacked
yeah.
by those sort of people who would say, no, let's get rid of everyone. Because I've had towards me as well, where people say, oh, we are going to deport you. As I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
Mm,
You can't converse with people like that then.
no, you'll find out most of them use anonymous accounts. They're not very brave. I found
Mm,
these what the quote ethno nationalists they call themselves, but then
mm,
there's very rarely they'll use their own name, their own face, and they'll be out there loud and proud. Um,
mm,
but you know, I think it is confined right to the fringes of the movement, so to speak, of
mm,
the right wing. It's very fringe. It's mainly based online, live streams, that sort of stuff. Um, and it's. I mean, I always use this analogy when I try to explain to people. If you walk down an average high
mm,
street, just any high street anywhere in the country,
mm,
and you just stopped people at randomly, and you asked 10 people,
mm,
who is, do you know who Britain First is? I think maybe 7 out of 10 would say, yeah, they know who they are. If you walk down
mm.
an average high street and ask 10 people, do you know who Tommy Robinson is? I think maybe the same. Seven out of
Yeah.
7 out of 10 will say, yeah, I know who he is, yeah. But if you went down an average high street and you asked them who any of these fringe players are, they wouldn't have a clue. Like they got
Yeah.
in my opinion, the only people with household that is a household name with public recognition that's widespread and entrenched is Britain First, myself, and Tommy
Mm.
Robinson. So I always try to think that
Yeah.
it's not really they're not really particularly a big force on the right of politics. I see them more
Yeah.
as they're
I
in the
think so.
fringe.
They just seem like it on social media, like you were saying, right?
Mm,
Because I felt this before I went on the 1st of June rally organized by Tommy Robinson. So on purpose, I went like incognito. I was like, I'll just go by myself, right? And I'll show people that it's not racist. It's not like everything like
mm,
that, because I will be welcomed over there, and which was the case. And I felt very safe in there, with all those people. And it just showed me that all this chatter of ethno-nationalists, that's confined to social media
yeah,
most of the time. These people are not really accepted by the wider society on the right as well. But what happens is on social media, because of these sort of people, they they stop from this very serious conversation to take place sometimes, on social media as well, about immigration, about how we need to be sensible about immigration, how we need to really think about our relationship even with the other Commonwealth countries, some of them who are not really, who are actually hostile against us, right? Like places like Pakistan and stuff. Their people are coming over, and they're actively hostile, actively anti-British and stuff. But
yeah,
we can't have those conversations online, because once you start doing it, you get muddied up with those sort of people
mm,
who are just bad faith actors. And I
mm,
find that very disappointing, because there's a lot of difficult conversations that we need to have, especially around immigration. Personally believe we do need to pause immigration. We
yeah,
need to kick out all illegal immigrants, because it's
mm,
just sensible thing to do.
yeah,
And we need to think about, like, in the future when we have immigration, what it should look like, which countries should we not have immigration from, which cultures should we have immigration from only, like, those sort of things. And that's nothing to do
mm,
with being an ethno-nationalist. That's just loving your country, like, and not wanting it to be
mm.
destroyed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And yeah, they call people like Britain First and so on, they call us sellouts and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're the ones out there on the streets, in the front line, at the ballot boxes, and we're the ones putting ourselves out there in extreme danger a lot of the times. And we've got no reason to feel, any kind of shame over our positions. It's just, we like I say, Britain First is more concerned not with the movement, but with the public. If we can't change the opinions of
Mm,
the public, if we can't mobilise the public in the years to come, then the country's doomed. So we're solely, purely focused on achieving power. Starting off at the low levels and
yeah.
working our way up. Of course, it's got to be gradual. It's got to be strategic and tactical. But we are a serious movement. A lot of
Mm,
these fringe groups that like to call us all sellouts and all this kind of stuff. Like I say, they're just, I call
mm,
them micro groups. They exist on the fringes on social media in little echo
yeah.
chambers. So if
Mm,
you went onto the Britain First website, you can see, you go onto the racism section. There's
mm,
50 photos there that of ethnic minority supporters of Britain First. Who I get it all the time, especially in the recent London campaign. We was knocking on doors.
mm,
We were searching our database, ringing people, arranging to go to meetings
mm,
so they can sign our nomination forms. And when they would open the door, it
mm,
would be, a Jamaican man, like 70 years old
yeah.
Jamaican man who came over here with Windrush and so on, who's grown up in this country, and he's 100% behind us. And for
Yeah.
them to ignore all of this support, and uh, where were the other day? I don't know if you saw the video recently. I think we put it out last Saturday, just this Saturday gone. We took over a busy roundabout in southeast London in Crayford, and the support was enormous.
Mm,
And a lot of the support was coming from ethnic
mm,
minorities. What I could see, it looked like Asian
yeah.
women, Asian men, uh, but
Mm,
middle-aged black men and so on. They were cheering and supporting us. We had our placards
mm,
there saying Britain first, deport illegal immigrants and all this kind of stuff, and they were really solidly
yeah.
behind us. Of course, we still
Yeah.
recognise, and we will never drop this. We will never hide it. We obviously we recognise that the white British are the native inhabitants of these islands, and
But that everyone should recognize that, you know,
mm,
it's a fact.
it's common sense. Yeah, it's like we recognise that the Pakistanis are the native peoples of Pakistan. We would never dream of saying no. To say that would be racist. But there's within Britain
Yeah.
First, and I can only speak for Britain First. There's no hatred, racism, anything
Mm,
like that. Not even
mm,
slightly. We wouldn't tolerate it because it is pretty daft. You
mm,
can want your country to
mm,
remain demographically. You can
mm.
want the white British people to remain the majority in this country. That's a common sense position because
Yeah.
that's the way it's been thousands of years.
Mm,
Doesn't mean you have to be hostile to anyone. The only people that I always say this, the only people that we hate and we're hostile towards are the white politicians in Westminster and the white journalists who are deliberately wrecking this country.
yeah.
They're the ones we hate. I go to bed every night full of hatred for them, and all the, and so on. So, uh, it is a different.
It's a very good point that you bring up as well, because I often say that all these Islamists, all these worky types, and all these, like, DEI groups and all of that, like, these are actually just symptoms of the problem, right? These are not the problem itself. It is our native people on the left who have betrayed Britain who
Yes,
are the main enemies in that sort. Because if they didn't allow this to happen, nothing of this would have happened, right? All these Islamists and stuff would not have come if we didn't have the infiltration in our courts, in our civil services, in our politics. Without them,
yeah,
this just wouldn't have happened.
of course,
And
yeah.
people need to focus on that, as
This,
well.
this this country's got many problems, and one of the problems that we've got, perhaps the biggest problem, we've got a white
Mm,
problem. White
mm,
politicians, white journalists, white leftists, white professors, white trade unionists,
mm.
white teachers brainwashing children. We've got a problem. Like
Yeah.
if we look at it like these ethno-nationalists look at it, if every non-white person in the country voted for Labour still wouldn't be able to take power. Um, all the people
Yeah.
who keep voting for Labour and all the people who keep putting the Tories in power, because they're the ones ruining the country. They're the ones. Who keeps voting
Mm,
for them in the majority? Well, it's white people. So
mm.
yes, we do have a white problem in this country, and all that. Like I say, there are some exceptions like Diane Abbott and so on, but generally we've got a problem in this country. The main problem is white politicians and white journalists of left-wing persuasion. And I include the
Mm.
Tories in that. I think they are centre-left these days. They're basically where the old Liberal
Oh
Democrats.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't see them as part of the right at all. Um, so yeah, if
And
Britain,
these are the sort of people that bring in all the diversity, DEI stuff into companies and into local authorities and everyone as well. Is these a native population that is bringing it in
yeah,
and enabling the bad faith actors to, because Islamists are just using, they just don't see it. Islamists are just using them so easily because they're
yeah,
just riding on their backs, and they, like, that's how they're entering into our system. And look at
yeah,
now that we are having all of these people stand up within local authorities and stuff, where we have forgotten why local democracy is actually the most important bit in our politics. That's the engine of where everything works from. you know that's the engine of governance. These Islamists know about it, and that's why they're standing up in these local councils and stuff.
mm. Yeah. And I work on the basis that you can't blame a dog for barking. So
Mm,
these Islamists are going to be Islamists. I saw
mm,
uploaded a video the other day of I think it's Shaquille or something from Birmingham. He's a well-known extremist, but he's there. He's talking to the camera, making a
mm,
speech in a community centre or something with a Muslim crowd, and he's saying, "What have the old part? What have Labour and Tories ever done for our people and our community?" And
mm.
that they've got no intention of assimilating.
Everything.
They've got no intention. Who is your people? As far as he's concerned,
Yeah.
his people are Islamists and Muslims. So he is
Yeah.
he is. You can see this happening. Nigel Farage calls it sectarian politics. It's all over the country. There's
Mm,
a guy called Muhammad Ali Islam in Bradford, who's making waves.
mm.
You've got a guy called Ahmed Yaqub in Birmingham, who
Yeah,
stood
I've
for the
seen
police.
him.
Yeah, I go on
Solicitor or
TikTok all
something,
the
isn't he?
time. They're everywhere. I look on TikTok all the time. They're popping
Yeah.
up all over the place. We're very,
Mm,
very close to having a
mm.
party of Islam. Now, I think that the Party of Islam tried to
Yeah.
be registered a little while back, but it was rejected by the Electoral Commission. But I think
Mm.
we're very close overall to having a Party of Islam in this country. And I think when that happens, then the society is going to be fractured quite badly in the years to come.
That's the thing, like, why do we have to wait for everything to go really bad before we actually do something about it? It
Mm.
just frustrates me. Why can't people open their eyes to it? Like, they might not call it a Muslim party next time. They might call it something else,
Yeah,
but we will know by their members what the whole party is about,
yeah,
because they have nothing else. Like, but coming from something that you mentioned before, which has been playing on my mind for a very long time, the problem in our prisons, right, which people are not clocking on to that much,
yeah,
the radicalization that is happening in our prisons by these Islamists for a very long time now. And this is why
yeah,
they're not afraid of going to the prisons, because it's filled with their brothers, right, who will take care of them.
yeah.
How do we, uh, oh, how would Britain first deal with it in the future if it comes into power?
Two words: mass deportations. Simple as that.
Yes.
Anyone involved in Islamic extremism at any level will be deported, even if they're born here or not interested. Uh, they'll be deported.
Mm,
Simple as that. Even if they're in prison, we'll say, right, we're going to release you from prison, and you just choose a country. We'll pay for your flight. Choose a country. We'll take you to Heathrow Airport, and
mm,
off you go. Um, that's the way we'll get rid of a lot of this issue, because we're in favour of deportations. If we came to power tomorrow, the first thing we would do is obviously illegal immigrants. The boat migrants and stuff like that.
mm,
Apparently,
mm.
there's something like 2 million in Britain. If you believe the government statistics, it's probably more, but there's like 2 million illegal immigrants in Britain. So there's where you start. The
Crazy.
second would be foreign criminals. So there's lots of foreign
Mm,
criminals in this country, like over 100,000. They'd all be
mm,
deported, and then anyone involved in any kind of Islamist extremism, Islamist activities, anyone at any level in any way, shape. I mean, even just giving out extremist leaflets, anything at all like that, bang, you're gone.
mm,
You'll just be if you don't want to go back
mm.
to Pakistan just choose a country. You've got the whole world to choose from, but you've got to go. You've got 1 month to choose, and then you're off. And then you just get your plane ticket for free at Heathrow, and you're gone. Yeah, or we'll put you in prison for 20 years. We can start to turn the situation around and deal with a lot of the problems that we have in this country. There's the problem is so widespread. Anyone who operates a Sharia court, for example, like I've been to a Sharia
Mm.
court in East London.
There shouldn't be any, right?
It beggars belief, doesn't it? It goes without saying. Anyone who operates a Sharia court will be deported. A parallel legal system, and there's so many scandals coming out of these Sharia
Mm.
courts. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We'll just pick and choose as we go along. Anyone involved in Sharia courts, anyone involved in halal slaughter,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
any mosque that's been caught engaging in extremism. I'll give you an example. There's a mosque in Cardiff
Mm.
that was pumping out ISIS recruits during that period, and the imam was caught on
Mm.
audio recording telling the worshippers at that mosque that it's okay to keep sex slaves because the Prophet Muhammad did. So I went down there with a team of activists
Of course.
to confront that imam, and they threw me in prison for a month for entering the mosque. So I did a month in Pentonville in extreme isolation. That's one of my prison stints. So I'll do it again. I'll do it 1,000
It's
times again. But
ridiculous.
that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I went to prison was because I went down to confront this imam. So he'd be deported, and that mosque would be closed down. Anyone who engages in any level of religious extremism
Mm.
would be closed down overnight. Uh, we can recover the
So, what
situation
about
quite easily.
people who have? What about What about people who have, let's say, citizenships, right? So if someone has dual citizenship, you can take away their citizenship, which is lawful. You could actually do that. Take away
Mm.
their British citizenship and send them to whichever nationality that they are from. What if someone, like, they don't have any other nationality but British nationality, but they are extremists, whether
Mm.
they are of native population or they are of immigrant population?
Mm.
And if we want to deport them, but we can't really, because the country won't take them any other country.
Well, that's why you'd give them the option. You'd let them choose. Just say you're being deported, choose a country, and you just let them choose where they go. They can claim asylum anywhere. As simple as that.
The
So
one thing though, I've been thinking about it. What would it be better to advocate for, um, taking away Islam's religious status? Because if it can happen, let me just explain like why I say that. Because if it can happen, a lot of it can voluntarily solve its problem, right? So if you take away Islam's religious status, all the exemptions along with it go away, like
mm,
halal food, like all their sharia nonsense, uh,
mm, mm,
like anything to do with their religion, the acceptance of them as a religious entity. Take away
yeah,
the ability for them to have a mosque with a minaret, right? So you can't have a mosque with a minaret. You can have a community center, and that community center has to be used by everyone else as well, right? So it will become, rather than saying, okay, if you want to remain over here as a Muslim, that's your choice. Like it's just not a religion that we accept, so we're not gonna give you any exemptions. But if you
mm,
actually believe in your Allah, then it shouldn't matter, should it?
mm.
You'll find a way. Otherwise, you go where it's accepted. W- is
Yeah. I
that
mean,
a tactic that might work a little bit better?
it's possible. I'd have to look into that. I'm not too sure what kind of perks and
Mm,
privilege you get from the official religious status.
mm,
But essentially, if we came to see, the thing what people need to understand is that people think we're like America, where you have these inalienable rights that can never ever
mm,
be infringed upon. That's not true in Britain. So in Britain, we have
mm,
a parliamentary system. In a sense, we have a parliamentary dictatorship because Parliament can pass any law it wants and it becomes law and it's enforceable. Any law.
mm,
So Parliament
mm,
could pass a law tomorrow that compels me to wear pink clothes for the rest of my life. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's the law.
mm,
Parliament could pass a law tomorrow saying Britain First is banned. It doesn't matter if you're a political party. You are
mm,
banned.
mm,
So we do have like a parliamentary dictatorship. So we only have as many rights as Parliament gives us. So
mm,
if Britain first came to power, then we would introduce a law on religion that banned not just halal but kosher as well. Any religious kind of
mm,
barbaric,
mm.
any kind of religious barbaric ritual slaughter would be banned, and that goes for kosher as well.
Yeah.
Like super legal courts would be banned, such as Sharia courts and so on. So
Mm,
no one can have their own court
mm,
system that runs parallel to the British court system.
mm,
Um, we'd pass a law that say any religious institution that preaches certain concepts, such as uh, hostility towards non-believers, slavery, sex slavery, jihad, holy war, anything at all. But this
mm.
this this can apply across the board. You see, you don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't have to make it very specific. You can just make it broad brushstrokes.
Mm,
Because we all know there's not going
yeah.
to be any churches closed down. We all know there's not going to be many Sikh temples closed down, Hindu temples, they're not going to get closed.
Yeah.
So we just set a mark and we enforce it, and everyone's got to live by that. And within
Mm,
that, you can have religious freedom, because obviously religious freedom coming out of the Reformation, the Protestant Revolution, it's part of it. It's an ingrained English cultural heritage that we have
mm,
religious freedom.
mm,
And I've thought about this a
mm,
lot over the years, and it was only when I started to look into the Reformation and the last 400, 500 years of our history, we have to have religious freedom because it's part of English culture.
mm,
That's why we had a Reformation back in the 1500s. But as long as we
mm,
have a set of agreed rules, then all the excesses and all the extremism will be prohibited. And again, we come back to the prisons. I was sent away for 2 months back in 2018 because I confronted and exposed a group of illegal immigrant gang rapists who gang raped an underage English girl. She was 15, I think, or maybe 16. No, she's definitely 15 because she was technically underage. So these illegal immigrants gang raped her. We found out where they lived, and we started to go and give leaflets to the neighbours and so on. And then we ended up in prison for 2 months for racially aggravated harassment of illegal immigrant gang rapists.
Seriously?
So I got sent to Elmley Prison on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent. And 3 days in, a bearded Islamist gang burst into my cell and attacked me. I sustained injuries, and the police gave them a no further action despite CCTV and photographic evidence. They gave them a no further action. It boggles the mind. All of this is in my book, by the way, The Battle for Britain. I mean, another instance, I was in Luton, and it was filmed on camera. I was punched in the face by by an Islamist, and he got a no further action despite there being video evidence. So the state always tells us, you're on your own. But the prison system is very much dominated by these Muslim gangs, and the key to their survival is that they stick together. They look out for each other. They stick together. And if you ever actually look at some of the proper, say, English or black villains that come out of prison and talk about their experiences on podcasts in prison, they'll say, you don't mess with the Muslims. You mess with
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even like people like Kevin Lane, who's a big old lump and a real fearsome beast in his own right. He says the Muslims run the prison. You mess with one, you mess with hundreds of them. They stick together. So that is a problem. So you either segregate them or you deport them. Simple as that. It's the only two options. You segregate them, because if I went back to prison, I'd like to see a prison that didn't have these Muslim gangs everywhere. And they're not just Asian Muslims. They're black Muslims. They're white Muslims. They bully people into joining inside. You join the gang, you become a Muslim, and you're safe then in prison. And they use this pressure to gain new recruits. And it's so widespread. They've taken over the whole prison system. So you either say we build them their own prisons, or we just deport them. Now, coming back to your point there about dual citizenship and all that, it is a tricky minefield at the moment. But as I explained, I think with Shamima Begum, you can revoke her British citizenship because she's got a Bangladeshi citizenship as well. What do you do with someone who's got exclusively British citizenship? How do you deport them? Well, it's simple. You pass a law. Parliament is a dictatorship. It can pass any law it wants, and it becomes legally enforceable. No one can override Parliament. No one or nothing can override Parliament. So you pass a law, you get a majority in a general election, you pass a law that says, if you're found to be engaging in anti-British hostility, you can be deported. Your citizenship can be revoked, even if you're born here. So you just pass a law and you do it. It will take, obviously, a strong government to force it through, but it can be done. Parliament can do anything.
So, but we will have to, I think so, we'll have to come out of ECHR, that's for sure, and we'll have to probably dismantle the Human Rights Act that we have. Because the thing is that if we take away their citizenships, right, and if we want to deport them, but if the country we are deporting them to doesn't want to accept them, then we can't. I think so. By law, we are unable to deport them to that country. Is that not correct?
That's the present system. But of course, if you've got a parliamentary majority, you pass any new law, abrogates a previous law. Yeah, so it supersedes a previous law. So if you passed a new law now that contradicted parts of the Human Rights Act, then it's the new law that takes priority. Okay, so you just bring in a new system, and like I say, you don't have to be specific. If you've got someone, say Anjem Chowdhury, the famous hate preacher, the one I've locked horns with many times, he obviously originates, or his family does, in Pakistan. So Yeah, the obvious choice for
Mm,
him would be Pakistan. But if Pakistan said we're not taking
mm,
him, you just say, right, you've got 1 month. You can choose over 200 countries. We will put you on a flight. As soon as they land in that other country, they become their problem. They have to claim asylum. So just you
mm,
just say to them, you get on the plane,
mm,
you choose a country of your choice, you're gone, and you don't let them back.
mm.
And then, of course, you can stop them coming.
And we can do the same thing to them with Pakistan as well. We could just send them to Pakistan.
Hmm.
We'll have a bad relationship with Pakistan afterwards, but who cares?
We've got a terrible
Um,
relationship with Pakistan as it is,
but
in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, and the thing as well is it might not come to it, right? Because we have the laws, but we are not applying those laws because we don't have the political will to do it, and we have a lot of political cowardice, and we are not doing it, right? So once if we deported all the illegal migrants anyways, if we deported all the ones with dual citizenships who have committed crime, and so on and so on, we
Yeah.
are taking away a huge factor of why our like of those who are born over here gets radicalized in the first place, right? So
Mm.
we take away that impetus anyways, and that problem might get fixed within a generation. So we
Yeah, I
might not
totally
even
agree.
have to
Yeah,
take those extreme things if
I
we actually
totally
apply the laws we already have.
yeah, I totally agree. It's just like I say, the main thing here is political willpower. You can come to power. You can probably use a
Mm,
lot of the infrastructure of law that's already there. You can use a lot of the infrastructure of the border force, the border control, all this kind of stuff. You can just use it. It's all sitting there. It's just no political willpower at all to be tough
yeah.
in this era
And
of
then
political
have you
cowardice.
seen this, Paul? Have you seen this as well? Like, because they're not doing this because they're afraid to be called racist or whatever, whatever. But in the process, they're actually harming the same community the most, who they don't want to be racist towards, right?
Mm.
All the moderate parents of these kids and stuff, or
Yeah,
all the other communities that we have that love Britain, but like are non-native people over here, we, they just end up harming them because they're just enabling extremism to take hold of more and more of their children, and they go
yeah.
unpunished then.
Exactly. Yeah. They're making the problem worse by not addressing it when it's small, and they allow it to grow. And like I say, it's that innate in the left wing politicians. It's an innate reluctance to deal with any of these problems because it could possibly potentially be perceived as racist, and that's what they're trying to avoid more than anything. That's why they allowed the
Mm,
scandals in Rotherham and Rochdale and all these other places, because everyone's terrified of being called racist. So they allow, you know,
mm,
you're right, because what I think the point you're trying to make is, said when you have a really bad Islamic terror attack and lots of people die, say like the Manchester Arena
mm,
bombing and all that,
mm,
it's a fact that a lot of Muslims who are completely innocent, who just go about their business, paying taxes and obeying, but they suffer a lot because the extremism is not. They get a lot of the blowback because of what the extremists are doing. It doesn't help anyone. Appeasement doesn't help anyone.
mm.
And they are allowing it
Yeah.
to flourish and blossom in this country.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand, like, why would you do that? Because it doesn't help anyone. And I know I blame the moderate Muslims themselves because they don't out the extremists from within their ranks. um but that's a different matter. But we have to do our job first.
Yeah,
It's just applying the law, and the politicians' first job is towards the people, securing our rights and our safety and so on. It just baffles me, and especially within the prison system as well. I mean, probably the reason why they're not persecuting the already Islamists who was in the prison and doing extremist acts within the prison is because it's filled with them, right? So if you start punishing them even further, then they're going to riot against the prison officers and so on and so
mm,
on, because there are more prisoners than prison officers. Then you can't even control them. Then
yeah,
they created this issue. Just deport. What are we? That's the thing as well. When the cases come in, oh, this foreign national, whatever has raped this woman, and he's going to go to prison for 10 years, and then we're going to deport him. It's like, why are we waiting 10 years? Why are we feeding
Mm,
him for 10 years,
mm.
5 years, or whatever the amount of years? You're giving him that much time to radicalize other people within the prison, and also get some lefty lawyer to help him, so that after those 5-10 years he doesn't even get deported. That's what
Yeah.
we're actually doing. Just
Well,
deport him. First instance, just get him out.
all this human rights law, like you said, which gives him plenty of scope, using legal aid to try and
Hmm.
fight deportation. I think it was a case recently that was an Iranian rapist, an Iranian national who raped someone in this country, couldn't be deported back to Iran because if the Iranian authorities found out that he was a rapist, they'd punish him for the second time. So he has to stay here. Who makes these decisions? It's
It's just a
insane.
joke.
Who makes these decisions? It's insane. Oh, it
I
baffles it
mean,
really.
it has to be a deep hatred of your own people to do that. And I see that
Mm.
within the Labour Party, that has always pretended to be for the working class, but is nowhere near to even caring about the working class. Because to see your own daughters, like the daughters of your own nation, getting raped, getting abused, getting
Yeah.
used by these thugs, gangs, this disgusting people, and
Mm.
not be riled up, and not be extremely angry. And I always say that because my wife is Polish, right? And I've been with her for like 13 years, and I've been going to Poland for 13 years, so I know their mentality, right? If this happened in Poland,
Yeah.
you know, and not like trying to sound like extreme, but I doubt any of those Pakistanis would still be alive.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And that's the fact.
And if it would have happened, in Britain, maybe back in the 50s, they wouldn't be alive, to be honest. So
Hmm.
yeah, we've
Yeah.
been subverted and sabotaged from within by, like I said, the main problem in Britain is a white
Hmm.
problem. The problem is white
Hmm.
politicians, white journalists, white professors, white lecturers, white teachers of left wing persuasion.
You're sounding like Hamza Yusuf now.
But yeah, but I mean, that is the problem, though, isn't
Yeah, I mean, that's
it?
a word from within.
Yeah, but the problem in this country is white traitors, not immigrants. Yeah, we've got an immigration
Hmm.
problem in terms of scale
Yeah.
and demographic change and all this kind of stuff. But that wouldn't matter if white people weren't having families and having 4 children each. We wouldn't have to worry
Hmm.
about mass immigration, at least for a while. Um, so that's again, it comes back. That's an internal problem. It's a white problem. We got the politicians, 99% of them,
Yeah.
or something like that. They're all, white Anglo Saxons, Celtic Anglo Saxons, like all of
Hmm.
them. Um,
Yeah.
they're the ones who make the vast majority of politicians. They're the ones who have opened the floodgates, allowed the wokeness and the LGBT and the transgenderism. And just name an issue. It's mainly the white politicians allowing it to
Yeah.
happen. Look at the journalists, the vast
Yeah.
majority
It's
of them.
always the enemies within, isn't it?
Yeah, we're dealing with treachery from within. Yeah.
Hmm.
And we're also, the fact
And
that they
I'm
keep
sorry.
getting elected. Labour governments get elected. Tory governments
Hmm.
get elected by a major,
Yeah.
by the most part, are white electorates, white voters. At
Hmm.
least 75, 80% of the voters in this country are native white British people. So yeah, that's why Britain First is far more concerned about trying to change attitudes and beliefs within the majority white community as well. Um,
Hmm.
'Cause unless you do that, then it doesn't matter one little bit. What you could deport every Islamist from this country. We'd still be in a country heading to hell in a handcart. So we need an internal
Yeah.
revolution.
Because you'll have to contend with communists then, right? You'll
Yeah,
have to contend with communists, or
yeah,
you'll have to attend with some other enemy of some other sort, right? Because
yeah.
if we had politicians who actually gave a shit about the people over here, then they would be putting in laws, putting in policies and stuff that promoted the British families, that made sure that the British families stay together, they don't break up, that incentivizes people to have kids, to enable them to have homes, and on and on and on, rather than
Mm.
housing all the illegal immigrants who can come over here and
Yeah.
who can potentially vote for them you
It,
know
it's a far more like some people I've noticed on our side of the fence. They're just against Muslims. They're just against Islam.
Hmm.
We have to be a bit more broad. We
Yeah.
have to be far more broad than that because the floodgates haven't been opened by the Muslims. Okay, the LGBT
Yeah. Yeah.
transgender ideology sweeping our schools and our children. The Muslims are not behind that. If you look at
Hmm.
there's so many different examples. You look at all the laws that are made. It's not the Muslims making the laws. If you look at the media, it's not the
Hmm.
Muslims that are dominating the media. You can't blame everything in this country on the Islamic
Hmm.
population. You ha- Islamic extremism is one problem, but it's a symptom
Hmm.
of treacherous white politicians and leftists. So
Hmm.
you have to be far
Yeah.
more broad in your approach, rather than just, oh, it's Islam, we need to get rid of Islam and then everything will be perfect.
Hmm.
No, it won't. No, it won't one little bit.
Yeah.
The problem we have in this country, the
Because it's
primary,
an excuse, right? It becomes an excuse then of not taking your own responsibilities, your personal responsibilities. You're just blaming an outgroup then. And even though that outgroup might be a problem, but like you said, I've been saying that as well, like these are symptoms, these are not the
yeah,
problems. The problem
yeah,
you fix at the core.
yeah. I mean, it's
Sorry,
not
go on.
Muslim, it's not Muslims that are stopping white families from having children. It's not
Hmm.
Muslims that are stopping English people from celebrating St George's Day. Uh,
Hmm.
exactly. It's we need to look in the mirror. That's the thing. We need to look in the mirror and say what are we doing different than our
Hmm.
grandfathers did back in the 50s? Because you go look back in the 50s, we could say
Yeah.
that was an ideal time for Britain. Our grandparents didn't have fabulous. Well, they weren't the material wealth in society that we have these days. But generally speaking, they
Hmm.
were much
Hmm.
happier, and society had a future back then. At the moment, it doesn't. So we have to see
Hmm.
what are we doing wrong. The what we are doing is we're not having children. We're
Hmm.
voting for the same old treacherous parties. We're not taking our own culture and
Hmm.
heritage seriously. We're not really putting ourselves
Hmm.
out to celebrate it and keep it alive. We're allowing our children to be subverted in our schools with all this left wing ideology. We are allowing that. We need to look in the mirror. This
Hmm.
is why I said the problem we have in this country is primarily with our own community. Everything else, like you say, is
Yeah.
just fumes. It's just symptoms.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's what I said when I went on recently when I went on Turning Point UK's event as well, and I gave a speech over there, and that's exactly what I said. It's like we left our churches empty. It's we who have done that. We have broken up our families. So
Yeah,
let's concentrate on that first,
absolutely. Yeah,
and then whatever comes, then it will be easier to deal with.
yeah,
Stop just blaming other people. Like, yes, a lot of things, because what it does, it just takes away your ability to improve your own life, because you're just going to get more and more and more depressed. If the enemy is so much bigger than you in
mm,
your own head, then what's the point to even fight it?
mm,
So yeah, I do really do agree with that. And I know,
mm,
like, as an ex-Muslim, I have a tendency to go very much anti-Islam. It's
yeah,
because I've seen that other end, right? And I'm trying to
mm,
warn people against. By the other hand, you're right. Like, myself and other people should have that perspective as well. Like, don't be just a sort of one topic sort of a thing.
yeah,
The problem is a lot wider. If you need to fix it,
mm,
the problem is a lot wider, but we need to focus on the core of it. But coming on from that, because I got derailed on what I actually wanted to talk to you about. The what would you say is the political philosophy of Britain First? What are the guiding principles of Britain First?
in terms of policies or tactics.
Yeah.
In
Well,
policy,
in terms of the party philosophy, the political philosophy, what sits behind it, what shapes the policies. And no matter the policies can change.
Mm. So, I mean, we are like a patriotic, a nationalist, a right wing, conservative, uh, old fashioned, traditionalist political party. I think that sums it up using labels that everyone can be recognise. And our strategy is to, well, we've only been a political party for 2 years. Before that,
Mm,
we struggled for a long time with the Electoral Commission trying to block us becoming a political party, and
mm,
we obviously became very prominent in Britain by our activities back in the old days of confronting radical Islamists around the country. When we used to chase them all around the streets, charge their demos, we used to ambush them, go to their houses, go to their
mm,
workplaces. We really did terrorise them for a long time, and we'd upload the videos of these things to social media, and they'd get millions of hits. And by the time it was censored, our page on
mm,
Facebook had 2.2 million followers. I mean, it was bigger than all the other mainstream political parties combined. We built up a huge
mm,
social media fan base, and we start off. I mean, our priority now. We've contested quite a lot of high-profile elections over the last 2 years. Also, a lot of local
mm,
elections, council elections. We've done okay in one particular parliamentary election, which was Tamworth, and the others we didn't do so well. We stood recently in the London elections, primarily to get ourselves out to millions of people in London with the booklets and you get a two-page spread in the booklet and so on. We've done okay in the Assembly election, but we've
mm,
done abysmally in the mayoral election, primarily because everyone who wanted to vote for the
mm.
next mayor wanted to vote for the Tory candidate because they were desperate to get rid of Sadiq Khan. So that everyone who's
Yeah.
a lot of people voted for us in the Assembly, but not in the mayoral race. But in the local
Mm,
elections, in various seats all around the country, we've beaten the Tories, we've beaten Labour, we've beaten Lib Dems, beaten the Greens, we've beaten Reform, we've beaten UKIP, we've beaten all different parties in various seats, and we've got some really, really good results. So now, primarily, we're going to, at least for a while, we're going to shun the parliamentary by-elections and elsewhere. We're just going to focus on winning council seats.
mm.
We've got a lot of interest,
Yeah.
a lot of parties across Europe and the West are extending the hand of friendship, and we've got a lot of meetings coming up. I'm going to be traveling Europe soon. So we're really
Mm,
starting to become prominent. Like I say, our membership, our donor base is all exploding. Like I say, we're compared to, say, Reform, and you think how big and well
mm,
funded and the platform they're given by the media, well, they hit 30,000 members last week and we're at 16,000. So we're
mm,
without the same kind of exposure that they get and the leg up from the establishment that they enjoy. We're half their size. We're not bad for
mm.
an up and coming party that's only been, well, the party we've only been around for 2 years. But yes, I definitely like the way we're going. And to be honest, I actually think the incoming Labour government is going to be a bit of a blessing. It, not so much for the country, but for the
Mm.
prospects of a radical patriotic party making progress. Because
Yeah.
I've always
Mm,
said, and it's a bit of a perverse reality, the worse it gets in this
mm.
country, the more people are going to be forced to vote for something outside the box. The more extreme it
Yeah.
gets in the country, the more
Mm,
extreme people are going to vote. So if you can still go on holiday,
mm,
and you've got a stable job, and you can pay your mortgage, and you can watch X Factor, and if you might moan about the
mm,
boats coming over the channel and all the other problems, but generally your life is not impacted. What I think we're going to see over the
mm.
next 10 years is people's personal lives uh, disturbed to quite a significant degree. Politics is going to come home to roost for a lot of people because, as the ancient Greek philosopher said, you can ignore politics, but politics won't ignore you. People's individual lives are
Yeah.
downstream from politics a lot of the time, but sometimes it
Mm.
takes a long time for problems to really manifest themselves in people's lives. So that's where we're heading. The country's going to get worse and worse and worse, especially under a Labour government. I mean, can you imagine Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner running this country? It's going to be absolutely abysmal.
I can't. I just can't.
It's coming.
It's so horrible. I want to skip the next 5 years.
Well,
Somehow.
we're less what 3 weeks away now. 3 weeks from Prime Minister Keir Starmer. It's going to
Yeah,
be horrific. It's going
yeah.
to be horrific, but it's
And you're you're right about that. Like the problems getting worse and worse for people, because we've already seen that, right? Past year or so, it has picked up a lot, where a lot more people are getting involved in politics,
Mm,
but also in expressing their displeasure of the current affairs, because the new mortgage rates are hitting up, right? And that's what's, like, happening with me currently as well, but a lot of people. And the new mortgage rates are like 5%, 6%, right? And it's becoming impossible for people to afford their homes now. They're understanding finally what happens when you have mass immigration, unchecked mass immigration, and what effects it has, because you don't have any place to live now. You can't pay the rent properly, you can't pay the mortgage properly, and the more of this happens, the more people are going to wake up from the realities. It's like, okay, it's not about just being nice anymore. This all this woke nonsense is actually not paying your bills anymore. It's actually making you very poor. That's when they have
yeah,
to wake up from it, don't they?
exactly. Yeah. So I think we're the next 10 years. Although the country, see for me, my purpose, my driving mission for the last 25 years of my life has been to save the country. So
Hmm.
what I don't want is for there to be a slow, gradual decline where
Yeah.
people adjust, people get used to it, people move away. I,
Hmm.
essentially, I want things to get so bad so quickly in the shortest possible amount of time that it forces people off their backsides, and then outside of the
Hmm.
Westminster duopoly. That's what we need. And I think at the moment we've got a perfect storm.
Hmm.
We've got Nigel Farage and Reform taking a sledgehammer to the two-party system, um,
Hmm.
and then you've got Labour coming in, a new Labour government, which is going to be worse than anything we've ever seen. And they're going to, like I said, you can't blame a dog for barking. Labour are Labour. They're going to
Hmm.
accelerate immigration.
Yeah.
They're going to unleash woke extremism. They're going to do nothing to stop the boats. In fact, a
Hmm.
Labour government, news of a Labour government is going to spread throughout the third world, and I think it will increase the boat invasion. So I think
Yeah.
everything. We're on the cusp of everything about to be getting worse and worse and worse, and we're also in the middle of a major realignment because Nigel Farage and Reform are taking a wrecking ball to the two-party system.
Hmm.
The only downside is that Nigel Farage has said openly, it's in GB News today, that he's looking to merge Reform back into the Tories.
I was
It-
just going to ask you about that, actually.
yeah, if the Tories are annihilated, he's going to merge Reform back into the Tories. So
Hmm.
we're probably going to be stuck with the Tory party for quite a while. Um, but
Yeah.
I
I mean,
personally
I
think,
said this. I said this 2 weeks ago. I said this, and people were jumping on me.
mm,
Oh, stop being so negative about Farage and stuff. Oh, you're just saying that because you're not British. It's like, I am, but okay, fine. So, it's because I was saying it. Look, for what I have seen Farage over the years, it just seems like his intention was to be the leader of Tories,
mm,
and all the parties that he's used it as a protest party against the Tories rather than a protest party for the nation.
yeah,
It's just his way of getting in, and that's why his idea of going to that "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here" was not to be palatable to the Reform Party voters,
yeah,
because they would have voted for him anyways, whether he
yeah,
went over there or not.
yeah,
That was to be palatable to the Tory voter base, right?
yeah.
And people were mixing this. I was like, no, I just had a feeling that he's always wanted that.
He's openly saying it, But you're right. When I point this
Mm,
out, like I pointed this out today on a post on my X, and I pointed this out, and all
mm,
the comments were like, "No, no, you're twisting his words. You're taking it out of context." So I went and got the link from GB News, which is from today, where Nigel Farage specifically says, "I'm going to merge Reform into the Tories after the election."
yeah,
He's openly telling you what he's going to do. I'm just repeating him.
yeah,
But I think people are so desperate at the moment. for something,
Yeah.
and that desperation is making people irrational a little bit at the moment.
Mm.
Because this is what's going to happen is after the election, the Tories are going to get annihilated. Reform,
Mm.
in my opinion, I only think their only hope of winning a seat is Clacton. People are like, no, they're going to win 50
Yeah.
seats. I'm like, okay, we'll see. I've been
Not more than
in,
5. I don't think so. More than 5.
yeah, I don't even think more than one. I'll be shocked if they win more than
Mm.
one. I think we're going to have a situation back in
Mm.
2015 where they get 4 million votes and one seat. I think
Mm.
history is going to repeat itself again because we've got first past the post. People are not
Mm.
taking into account we've got
Yeah.
first past the post, so they could get 8 million votes and one seat. But you
Mm.
have to have votes in
Yeah.
concentration to do first past the post.
Mm.
So I think they're going to get 4 million votes, 5 million votes, but I think they're going to get, if they're lucky, get one seat in Parliament. Now, when I say this to people, like, no, they're going to destroy the Tories. It's going to be Reform and Labour in the future. Okay, we shall see. But that's not going to
Mm.
happen because Nigel Farage has said like 3 times publicly now that if the Tories are wiped out, he will then take over the Tories and bring reform into the Tories under a leader like Suella Braverman.
Mm.
He's the one saying it, not me. But people think it's me having a pop at Nigel
Mm.
Farage. I've already said vote reform in this election. I've already said
Yeah.
let them take a wrecking ball to the two-party system. Let them do it. It's good. It's all
Mm.
good. Even though he calls me neo-fascist and he calls Tommy Robinson supporters shaven-headed thugs with tattoos. Forget all that, right? At the moment, as things stand, vote reform, okay? Because that's the best thing to do at the moment, okay? So we're looking at this from a long-term point of view. So let him take a wrecking ball to the Tories. That's what he's doing. But he's already said, look, people need to get this in their heads. He's already said he's going to merge reform into the Tories. He said it, not me. I'm just repeating what he has said, okay? Obviously, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on, a bit of resistance because people can't believe this. They actually want to vote reform because they think reform are outside the establishment, attacking it. But Nigel Farage has said quite clearly, if the Tories get massacred, then he's merging reform back into the Tories. Because Nigel
Yeah,
Farage,
I mean, he says like he won't do it in its current form, but obviously they won't be in their current form when Tories get annihilated this election. Their
yeah,
current form, obviously, it will change, but
yeah,
this is why I have a problem with that reform party in this. Where it's like, okay, vote for them, but don't think the work is done after you voted for them. That your responsibility is over. The real work begins on 5th of July. That's when the real work begins.
yeah. Because what's going to happen, and what I don't even think Nigel Farage is factoring in, is that the Tories are not the Tories anymore. The
Mm.
Tories are essentially
Yeah.
they've gone so far to the left that even their membership, even their MP
Mm.
base, even their branch organisers and officers and staff, they're practically all Liberal
Mm.
Democrats now. They won't tolerate. So actually, for
Yeah.
Nigel Farage merging reform into the Tories will in my opinion, will backfire because what you'll have is at least
Yeah.
2/3 of the Tory party just giving up and exiting that party, which again will hasten the destruction
Hmm.
of the Conservative Party. So it's all good.
Mm.
It's all good what's happening. But this is what is going to happen. So I think what's going to happen is Nigel Farage's great gamble is going to, because he wants to be a cabinet minister. He wants to be a cabinet minister. He wants to be
Mm.
an MP, and he can't do that. He knows from outside. It's like the Green Party gets millions of votes, but
Mm.
only one MP, and that's only because of Brighton. The LGBT capital, the
Yeah.
woke capital. So
Mm.
he knows to be really in the centre of politics, you have to be in one of the main parties. So what he's doing now is a massive, very complicated tactical manoeuvre to smash his way into the Tory party. That's what's happening.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
but like I say, it's all good because as soon as Nigel Farage gets in the Tories and Suella Braverman takes over and they become all these right-wing policies and all this kind of stuff, I guarantee you the Tory party will fall apart because it's become a Liberal
Yeah.
Democrat party. So many of their,
Yeah.
I think it was their manifesto they launched a couple of days ago. It's just dripping wet with woke kind of
Mm.
language. Britain is a
Well,
multi-religious.
why have the woke? But why have the woke taken hold more in the past 13, 14 years since the Tories have taken over? People need to understand, like, why do you think
Yeah.
it has taken over? Because they agree with it.
Mm.
They um sort of like they say in the shadows, right? They do in the shadows what they deny in the light, and
Yeah.
that's what they always do, because within them they agree with all the woke nonsense, but they put these characters out there, these few politicians out there, they put like Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, and like, and few of them they put out there who can be anti-woke,
Yeah.
right? And people would think, oh, the Tories are actually, yeah, they're going to fight against the Labour, but they don't realize that those are only few, and they're putting them out there for that reason.
Yeah.
Behind them sits a whole woke cabinet, a whole woke industry sits behind
Yeah.
them.
No,
Look
you're
at Penny
100%
Mordaunt.
right. Yeah.
Like, people want to vote for her because, oh, she can hold a sword. Really?
Yeah.
you know her forward for her book has been written by Bill Gates. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
You
you
know, and
know
Suella Braverman was Home Secretary for years. Years. She never stopped a single boat. Not one.
Hmm.
People
Yeah.
people put their faith in these. They the thing is, right, they've got their own playbook. The Tory types. They know that their vote comes from the right,
Hmm.
but they are left wing and they want to be left wing. They want to be liberal. So their whole
Hmm.
playbook is talk right wing, but govern liberal. That's it. And you look, since
Yeah.
2010, 14 years of Tory government,
Hmm. Hmm.
that has been proven to be 100% true. Undeniable. Yeah? It's an immutable fact of the Tory party. They talk right wing, but they govern liberal. That's it. That's what you get with them.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, so many of the Tory MPs, if you really dig down and start actually examining a lot of Tory MPs, they're just liberal Democrats. They're woke, they're liberal, they're in no way, shape, or form like us. So Nigel Farage trying to get into the Tories, thinking he
Hmm.
can revolutionise it, is only going to cause destruction, in my opinion. So it's all good from
which
anyone's
is
point
which
of
is
view.
good anyways. Like,
Yeah,
let them, yeah,
yeah.
let them destroy themselves,
But
both reform and
people won't
conservatives.
accept. There's so much resistance at the moment to the idea that Farage is just trying to ramrod himself into the Tories so he can take over the Tories, or be. He wants to be a cabinet minister.
Hmm.
He wants to be in Parliament. That's what he wants. So people can't
Yeah.
accept that what's going on is that it's just him trying to ramrod himself into the Tories and make it impossible for them to
Yeah.
say no. And that's what's going on. But we'll see, because like you said, on July the 5th,
Yeah.
when the dust has settled and Reform has won a single seat but got millions of votes, and
Hmm.
if that happens, the Tories might even say no, you're not coming into, you're not allowed into the Tories, and then
Do you think
his
like
whole.
people like Lee Anderson and people like Lee Anderson and Ben Habib would be just kicking themselves right now? It's like, what have they got themselves into?
No, I don't think right now, but I think on July the 5th there will be, because Ben Habib's not going to win a seat in Parliament.
Mm,
Andrew Bridgen's going to lose his seat in
yeah,
Parliament. Uh, Lee Anderson's going to lose
yeah,
his seat in Parliament. Uh, like I
mm,
say, people just there's a resistance at the moment to what we're saying. There's people are not going to
mm,
like what we're saying, but on July the 5th, people will
yeah,
understand why we're saying it. And I'm 90% sure that
definitely.
that what we're saying is correct. And when it unfolds, I think there's going to be a lot of
Mm,
disappointed people in this country. We're going to have a Labour government, a
yeah,
right, the centre right, so to speak, if we call it that, going to be absolutely in turmoil,
mm,
completely demoralised, completely
yeah,
deflated. That's, in my opinion, that's ideal conditions for Britain First to make real progress.
yeah,
So, from my point of view,
yeah.
yeah, the stars
So
are
I mean,
aligning.
yeah, I mean, I've taken up a lot of your time. So, uh, just to end the conversation, though, what can we expect from Britain First going forward, like from the 5th of July? Is it because I was speaking with Nick Tanconi as well, right? You probably know Nick anyways. He's now the deputy
Oh,
leader for UKIP.
UKIP deputy, yeah.
And he was saying a similar thing as well, that he wants to work on the grassroots level, right, on the local democracy sort of level.
Mm.
So is that a plan of Britain First as well? Because that's for me, like, I'm very passionate about the local democracy, because I think like that is the engine of governance. That's where, if you want to make a change, you have to make a change over there first, because no matter if you get into parliament, if you don't have the local democracy with you, you will be frustrated all along the way anyways, and you won't be able to implement any of your policies.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Especially with such a resurgent or an insurgent Reform Party under Nigel Farage, I don't think we'll be bothering with parliamentary by-elections or anything at a higher level for quite a long
Mm,
time, because we saw in Wellingborough that Reform were just on the ascendancy there, and they kind of, we said at the time, they kind of sucked all the oxygen out the room, so to speak, because their
mm,
vote compared to the previous election, which was Tamworth, we actually was just hot on
mm,
their hip. We was just finished just behind them. Whereas
mm,
in Wellingborough, which was 3-4 months later, uh, our vote
mm,
went down, but their vote quadrupled. So at
mm,
the moment, there's no point us, trying to do parliamentary
mm.
by-election. So we've contested 3 lots of local elections for 3 years on the
Yeah.
trot. So I say we've actually been a political party, I think, coming up for 3 years actually. 2.5 at the moment. Yeah, 2.5. So the first one
Yeah.
we contested, like I say, we beat the Conservatives, we beat the Lib Dems, beat the Greens, beat UKIP, um,
Mm,
and we've beat in Essex, we beat Labour. Uh, in Manchester, we beat the Tories. We've beaten the Lib Dems so many times now, I've forgotten. We've beaten the Green Party over and over again. So at
mm.
local level, local elections, even just putting out leaflets, we seem to be able to
Yeah.
compete with the biggest parties in politics. Okay, so that's where we're going to focus, because we realise that
Mm,
we need to start winning council seats, because once we start winning council seats, people can see that we
mm,
win, and then we put those wins onto future leaflets in other areas, and people can see they're not a
mm,
wasted vote. It's worth
mm.
voting for them. They can win. I think the floodgates are going to open then. So yeah, we're going to put heart and soul into winning
Yeah.
local elections, council elections. Next May, we've got county council and local elections, so we are going all out,
Mm,
100%. All
yeah.
systems, all systems blazing for the local elections next May, and we're just going to focus on that until we start winning seats.
Brilliant. I would love to see Britain force more in Essex as well, because I think so there is a natural support over here, since there are a lot of socially conservative and, like, those sort of right-minded people over here as well.
In
So
Essex, just to finish up, in Essex, we stood in, is it Hockley? Is it Hockley? Something like that? I can't remember the name of the
okay,
area.
yeah, yeah, Hockley, yeah. Mm,
Hockley, yeah. We stood in Hockley, so it's traditionally a Tory area, but Labour have stood there for
mm,
for as long as it's been around. We came in first time effort and defeated Labour. Um, so you know, that everywhere we fight at local level,
mm,
even in a rural town in Devon, we stood in Bideford, and we got
mm,
nearly 20% of the vote. I couldn't believe it. We stood in the New Forest
yeah,
in a nice area, the New Forest down on the south coast, and we got 15% of the vote. So, like I say, on local level, we can compete, and we're gonna try and make our breakthroughs.
yeah. And I think that Britain First has a lot of things going for you guys as well. The name itself,
Yeah,
and I really like your logos and stuff, because a lot of the political parties, even when you see UKIP, it's kind of weird, like they just a pound sign and stuff like that. But the emblem of Britain First is nice, like, even if you
yeah,
wear it as,
yeah.
on your shirt, on your coat, or whatever, like, it looks
Everyone can see
nice,
it.
it looks, yeah, exactly, exactly. It and those things matter. People might not say those things matter. How you put yourself out, how you present yourself, it matters a lot, and
Yeah.
that attracts people. So
Mm.
I hope, like, the membership keeps on growing, and you guys keep on pushing in the local elections, because, yeah, I mean, people are hungry for an actual party on the right, a sensible party, but also importantly a party that does not tolerate the kind of ethno-nationalism that we see as well,
Mm.
which, some other parties have starting to go down that route,
Yeah.
so Britain First becomes a more natural option for people. So I do hope people, look up Britain First. I'll put all the things in the description below, all the links and everything for people to look it up. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And
My
I've
pleasure. Anytime.
wasted so much of your time.
I look forward to coming
So,
back on.
well, yeah, I would love to have you back on. It's wonderful
Maybe have
talking with you.
another chat after the general election. See where the dust settles.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd
Yes.
be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a great idea. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching. I'll catch you next time.